So the big breaking news is that China has agreed to lift sanctions on British MPs and peers with immediate effect. Keir Starmer has made that clear. They imposed the sanctions 5 years ago on Conservative MPs Sir Iain Duncan Smith, Nusrat Ghani, Tom Tugendhat and Neil O'Brien, and Tim Loughton, he's no longer in Parliament. They were amongst those targeted. Two peers, Baroness Kennedy and Lord Alton, as well targeted. Now those sanctions have been lifted. Trevor Kavanagh is the former political editor of The Sun. Many have been questioning what the point of Keir Starmer's visit to China has been. Is this the point of it? As well as the visa-free travel for 30 days, Trevor? Is this enough, do you think? You're very welcome to the programme.
Thank you, Peter. Don't forget the Scotch whisky, which is worth a couple of $100 million.
Yes, so, indeed, yeah.
Yes, this is a big deal, isn't it? I mean, he's lifting these sanctions on perfectly respectable, democratically elected British MPs, which should never have been imposed in the first place. I mean, I think that your first reaction will be to see what Sir Iain Duncan Smith says about this, but I suspect...
We're literally on the phone to him right now trying to get him on the programme after you, Trevor.
Well, I suspect he's not going to be very impressed. Look, this new deal that we're having with China, we won't know for a long time just how much we have surrendered in order to achieve a couple of £100 million worth of whiskey sales. I think that we already know that we're surrendering our security or putting it at extreme risk by allowing the Chinese to build this spy centre disguised as an embassy in the centre, the very heart of the City of London, where our finance system is based, and upon the actual cables, over the cables which link us to all the big financial hubs in Europe and the West. So, look, this is high-risk stuff, but I don't think that the Labour Party has ever encountered a communist regime that they haven't loved. And I think back to my very first visit to China, which was in 1976, when Chairman Mao was still alive and still on the throne.
Goodness me.
And we were aware then, not perhaps in full detail, but we were aware that millions of people, in the end we now know that something like 20 to 30 million people were slaughtered during the reign of Chairman Mao. And yet the British Labour Party really never said a word of criticism, unlike the criticism, for instance, of Hitler, which is constantly raised as the spectre of dictator tyranny. No criticism of any serious nature ever made of a communist regime, wherever it may be.
It's a very, very good point. I wonder if you see any significance to Rachel Reeves not going. She was apparently dropped from the trip at the last minute in all of that, and what you see about that.
Well, a huge significance for Rachel Reeves herself. I think this is a vote of no confidence in her as Chancellor and as a senior player in the current Starmer-led Labour Party and government, because she's been shunted aside right through the point. I mean, the budget was something drawn up in Downing Street, number 10, not 11. And I think that ever since she was seen blubbing in Parliament, her star has basically crashed. I don't think she has. Her star is attached to Keir Starmer.
Yes.
And as long as he survives, she will, but not much longer.
Just on Keir Starmer, on these parliamentarians who are now allowed to go to China if they want to, I think the likelihood of Iain Duncan Smith, going for a package holiday in Shanghai is limited. The Keir Starmer has said this has been a real cause for concern across Parliament, and therefore I did raise it and we had a discussion. And as a result, it's clear from the Chinese that the restrictions no longer apply. President Xi said that all that means is all parliamentarians are free to travel to China. He added that this change of Chinese policy couldn't have happened if we weren't there having a leader-to-leader exchange. It doesn't happen if you stick your head in the sand. Previously, the Interparliamentary Alliance on China, who haven't reacted to this just yet, it's literally just happened in the last 10 minutes or so, they have said previously, earlier today, we would rather remain under sanction indefinitely than have our status used as a bargaining chip to justify lifting British sanctions on those officials responsible for the genocide in Xinjiang. We would reject any deal that prioritises our personal convenience over the pursuit of justice for the Uyghur people. And the statement was signed by all the parliamentarians who were sanctioned. The UK government apparently not planning on lifting sanctions on Chinese officials, but clearly there is some movement here on all of this, and we have asked Iain Duncan Smith, Tom Tugendhat and Tim Loughton to come on the programme, and perhaps they will. We'll see. I expect many journalists are getting in touch with them right now. Do you think Keir Starmer will look back on this and see it as a success, as a trip, and should we, Trevor?
Yes, he will, and we shouldn't. I mean, look, as I say, we don't know what we're sacrificing in return for this basically peanuts offer of a long and sophisticated relationship. Let's bear in mind that the last thing you could describe Keir Starmer as is sophisticated. We're going to import a lot of Chinese, excuse me, electronic goods, which are very high risk. Things like electric vehicles, which contain all sorts of software which constantly needs updating from Beijing. And those cars are not made by private companies with their own integrity. They are sanctioned by the Chinese government, and they contain whatever software and spyware that government decides to put in them. The same applies to all of our solar panels that we're going to start buying by the shed load. Cheap, but that's the way the Chinese do business. They give you something cheap and you pay dearly in the long run. So that's the problem we face with China now insinuating itself into the very heart of our government. And I think we will learn over time that we are surrendering our integrity and our authority and our independence.
Let me ask you about another story that has just broken in the last half an hour or so, Trevor. This is about the asylum seeker sentenced to a minimum of 29 years for stabbing a hotel worker to death. This is an absolutely dreadful case. Rhiannon White was stabbed 19 times with a screwdriver and 19 times in the head and 23 times in total. This was in October 2024 by Deng Chol Majek, who was caught on CCTV following her from the Park Inn Hotel in Walsall. He was put there as a small boat migrant who had come over from France. He lived there, she worked there, he followed her to Bescott Stadium Station, handed a life sentence with a minimum term of 29 years. I mean, this is just a dreadful thing that shouldn't have happened in the first place. Has justice been done, Trevor?
Well, I mean, 29 years, he'll serve, it's not a full life sentence, so he'll have a chance of having a parole at some point, but the whole issue of the murder and the sentence is almost irrelevant to the implications of how he got here in the first place and how many hundreds and even thousands of others who will pose a security and crime risk to this country are coming across totally unvetted. They're being allowed in, and then all sorts of largesses being handed to them in terms of healthcare and psychiatric care and free phones and all sorts of other things. And I think that we are, again, in fact, I think we have already opened the door to a crime wave that we're not capable now in this current climate of dealing with. The police aren't doing anything. They're really impotent. And not only have we had this murder, we've got the case which is proceeding of the two men accused of raping a 12-year-old girl, two Afghan migrants. This is rampant across Britain right now. I mean, they will do their best, the officials in the government.
Trevor, do you just want a moment just to maybe get a drink and clear your throat, and we'll come back to you? Would that help you?
No, that's okay.
Oh, you're okay? Sorry, do go ahead.
So, you know, the risks are already there, and the government and the officials in the Home Office will do everything they possibly can to play down the degree of this sort of criminality. And we'll always see apologists who will say, these are vulnerable people who are seeking our help and our mercy. But we're not being repaid for that generosity and that hospitality.
Yeah. There's another big controversy around about councils facing a revolt over cancelled elections. In your long time looking at elections and covering politics, have you ever seen anything quite like this before? 30 different local authorities saying they don't actually want elections because of the pressure they've been put under by central government because of the changes in local government. It does seem extraordinary that these elections have been cancelled, and unsurprisingly, some of the councillors are now walking out as a result.
Well, I think they have to be applauded for this. After all, they are Labour councillors and they're rebelling against their own undemocratic and authoritarian government, which is meddling in the democracy of this country. They deserve praise. And what is most disappointing is that some of these councils, which are not holding elections, are Tory. I mean, that really should be reversed very quickly. And we need these local council elections simply because otherwise any person who is unpopular in power would obviously say, well, I don't want to face the electorate because I'll lose my job, I'll lose my seat. They shouldn't be allowed to do this. They should be forced to face the electorate as they're expected to do every so many years.
Trevor, as always, thank you. Trevor Kavanagh there, former political editor of The Sun. We're going